Alright, let's go over the project. Alright, so you need to be doing these in orders. I put some posts on Google Classroom trying to clarify it yesterday. I also took and updated the instructions. So program requirements, it needs to have some form of user input. For example, you need at least one string. This could be a color. Also a number. And make sure to comment default values so that I can regenerate your original drawing, and then I will change these values and see if your program still runs. Yeah, kind of something like that. Because you're supposed to be able to take, when you take in user input, you need to make sure that that your code still runs. There's some variability. You have to generalize your code usually to do it, because for example, with the spider legs, we had a variable controlling how many legs, but then you completely abandoned that, and you started assuming that it's going to be constantly 8. So basically for the input, it needs to be able to handle changes. Is my point with the user input. So number of clouds. Again, you can add in some error handling, or you can make a comment. For example, it doesn't work. It crashes whenever you use 10,000 clouds. So you can put recommended value is 1 to 5. It should handle the case of 0. So if I said 0 clouds, make it a clear cloud-free day, for example. It shouldn't crash from 0. But I'm probably not going to test crazy high numbers because of how slow Turtle is. Colors, again, you don't have to check to see if bungalow is a color or something. So modulus needs to be used somewhere, and again, it can't be trivial. Well, it could be that, but I meant like it has to actually use modulus. So, for example, it needs to also use a while loop and a for loop. Recommend using the for loop for a list. But for example, this is an example of a trivial code. For n in the range 1, 2. This will execute a for loop where n equals 1 is the only thing executed. So this code will only execute what's in the for loop one time. That is a trivial for loop, and it's unnecessary. So you need to have some for loop where it's actually iterating over multiple items. And a while loop that also doesn't just execute one time. It has to actually loop over and over again. You also need to use a list. So again, no trivial solutions. If you have a trivial solution for a list, for example, a list containing only one thing, it shouldn't just contain one item. It should contain multiple items. So the purpose of this section is you need to capture all the ideas. I gave y'all some suggestions, but again, here's some teacher references. Go for quantity. The more ideas, the better. Don't evaluate the ideas, meaning you shouldn't be looking at what's feasible, what you'll actually use. The purpose of this is just generate and brainstorm a whole bunch of ideas. Later on, in the next sections, you'll actually choose which ideas you'll implement. So piling on is welcome, meaning that you can just cram as many ideas as possible into it. But you also need to have words in it. So you should explain your idea in words and list several modifications or additional features, ideas you can make to it. You should be brainstorming lots of ideas, as later during the planning phase you'll choose which features you'll actually use. You are not looking for just ideas or features you plan on actually implementing, but multiple ideas, because that actually is better for idea generation. For example, I'm pretty sure on all your cars, some engineer at the very beginning suggested let's add a rocket to it. And that's literally what they did. So do you know there's a car? Let's see if I can find the video of it. So in
imagine the places we'll go. Together, Expedia.
So, at one point, someone suggested having a car that had a fifth wheel in the 1950s. So they actually, when they're designing things, they actually add in a lot of different things. This made parallel parking much easier. They should have ruled it out in the design phase, but during the design and planning, an engineer went, "Oh, that's easy. We could add a fifth wheel. That'll do it." I'm imagining, because we don't have 5 wheels on cars now, they realized that this drove up the price of the car, and it was a feature no one really used. So adding an extra wheel and having the motor and everything just drove up the price, and they should have rolled it out during the planning phase. But it at least got a very interesting idea, and they actually implemented it. They figured out it was possible and easy to do. So you should be including words and describing your image. Also, I'm seeing a whole bunch of images, which is fine. But I want you to capture, include one major image sketch. Oh yeah, I said you couldn't. Oh, the reason why is because I was looking at how many thousands of lines of code it would take. Alright. Well, that's what I was saying, is I believe that you're capable of doing it. But hold on. So here's an example of a sketch. So the left image is acceptable. You could sketch it out and write in words. Okay, I plan a chair on the left. I plan a person standing next to it, a bed in the background, a whiteboard in the back with pictures and notes on it. You could put that on the picture in the background. I plan on drawing a sword, or maybe a boat, or maybe something else. So you can give a lot of ideas and encapsulate it in a sketch. Yes. Here's another example. Note that they didn't go in. They have a large empty space on the left. Now they can say there's going to be clouds, it's going to be a sunset, sunrise. They just drew some rectangles for a building in the background with 2 palm trees. They didn't end up using the palm trees. For a wall, they rough sketched it. They didn't fill in the bricks. Here in the comments ideas, you can say I'm going to use brick pattern for the wall on something again, and then here they didn't really sketch the background. They could say that this is going to be an ocean. You could say the idea that this is going to be a mountain range. Add clouds. Note that they're not actually during this phase designing the final image. The first part is just to investigate ideas. Here, a guy in a cloak, another guy, and he's holding some item in front of him. In the final image, he actually draws what the item is. He adds a background. He changes how the cloak and everything's done. Again, the initial. What's the fetus? Oh yeah, I can see it now. If you look really closely right here, you can see like yeah. But my point was the initial sketch doesn't have to be precise. Again, the purpose of the first stage is to come up with as many ideas as possible, which brings us to the next part, planning. So the next part is you're going to actually break up the problem. You're going to identify the major parts that you're going to choose. You're going to decide on which various parts you'll use. Decide which parts are feasible, meaning doable, and which you'll implement first. Estimate the time. Um, document them and assign it. Again, these are supposed to be all documented, so include documentation, not just sketches. You're supposed to have it typed out too. Typed out. Yeah, so you'll eventually come in here. You'll eventually come and combine all of these into your submission document. Oh, by the way, do you know how much this is worth? Of your entire 6th-week grade. 30%. Yes, because senior pictures aren't going to be taken right now. This is just for your ID. So, identify major parts. Again, think about the timing it'll take. If you think something will take too long, move it over to a nice to have or optional list. Oh, the one major issue about your drawing, though, that I had is there was very little originality in it. You were just copying it 100%. You need to change the background and make it more your own. Yeah.
You know what? That one, like, realistic picture?
So include milestones. In fact, for the AP version of this class, the code isn't the major thing they grade. I thought it was dumb too. Next, we'll get into the design. This is where you should come up with a final sketch. This is where you actually decide. Again, you're not supposed to do the final sketch until this portion. So, here is where you take all the things you decided on in the previous section. You can include some of the optional stuff, unless you really don't think you'll have time to do it, into it. But include sketches and diagrams. This is where, during this section, you would break up the individual portions. Because in the first deal is mostly supposed to be a rough draft. This is where you actually break up and show details of individual items. Oh, you gotta keep the person. I didn't have a problem with the person with the background.
And you would have been like, originality.
Yeah, if you would have done Todoroki, well, more fine. He's my favorite character.
Oh, yeah, I know. That guy over there, that's not dressed like that, because that looks like shit art.
So, the more difficult and time-consuming features you can move off. Update your milestones to reflect any changes. And in this portion, for everything you decide on, write pseudocode for it before you actually start programming. So describe how it's going to be done in pseudocode. It should be actual pseudocode. Like you can break up the major features and write pseudocode for each one. Then in the actual coding portion, you'll actually end up figuring out how to combine all the pseudocode together. I have to come up with a code word. I just did O. Come on, P. P. I know what I'm going to use. I was thinking that, but no. I have no clue. Alright, so during this part, you'll finalize your code, turn to planning, make a timeline of milestones, estimate how long it'll take you to code each feature. So also in there, I already jumped ahead to the document and present. I copied and pasted from this teacher page. I also took screenshots of an example. So they assumed 118 was a solution to this project, and they documented how you could answer the questions based off of 118. So if you had written 118 if 118 was the project, these are examples of answering all the questions. Well, I gave you an example because it was better than giving you an idea. So which brings to create and test. You develop a prototype. Basically, you make a testable code. Refer to your list of milestones and develop your first feature. You should be doing one feature at a time. Basically, what I would do is I'd add in all the pseudocode, commenting them out, and then you'll remove the pseudocode one at a time and replace it with actual code. Remember to use debugging techniques when you run into problems. Check that your feature meets the requirements. Test that the feature works and record milestone as complete. Make note of any changes that you have faced and how you overcome them. So be documenting. Repeat the procedure steps to develop and test each feature until you complete the project. As you add new features, test previously developed features. Let's come over here to this. This might be helpful to y'all. So, speed 0 makes turtles run at the fastest speed. Highly recommend not sitting there and waiting for 10 minutes. Yep. So, how to speed up turtle Python. Yeah. I recommend doing something similar to that too. And then copying and adding it in. But one thing you can do, so if you set speed to 0 for the fastest, but another thing you could do is have it to where it no longer draws. You can't see your screen at all. I'm not sure how to make it resume drawing, but if you add painter.tracer and do 0, 0, it will disable updating the screen at all. And let's see if I can. I won't be able to. But if you do this, the only time the screen will actually show what the turtle's drawing is when you call turtle.update. This is the fastest way of making it generate. I will probably come in there and actually. I'll sit there and have it draw it normally. And watch. I recommend you might want to put this in and test it. But note that your screen will stay completely white until it reaches this line in the code. What do you mean? Like, are you pushing Control Shift Click? And
Like, I'll press it once on accident, kind of like shift over
Control Tab. What's Control Tab?
every time, and I have to go back and do
That's used to switch between, like, if I do Control Tab, it switches between.
It's one of those. But I think I do a lot of
But was you running the code?
I was writing the code.
Another thing is you can't mix and match tabs and spaces. So, I know it should convert tabs into spaces, but if you press Control Tab, Control Shift Tab, I don't know if it'll actually put a tab in, because you should be using spaces and not real tabs. When you press Tab, if you have the spaces below the 4 or 2, it'll actually change it into 4 or 2 spaces instead of an actual tab character. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That demonstrates repeatability in code. So, back in the past, so your code takes up kilobytes, of data. Yeah, so, back in the past, they were very, very, small. Like you could barely fit games, on a disc or a cartridge. Do y'all notice the bushes versus the? Mm-hmm. It shows repeatability. Also, the varying mountains are the exact same, just pulled down. Yeah, but a lot of people didn't even ever recognize that the bushes are the exact same as clouds. They just changed the background color to green to save in space. So, I think I have this. This will be due the 23rd. That would be Wednesday night. So this is supposed to be 4 days in total. So this is supposed to be entirely completed Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. So I don't know how to deal with that. Well, like I said, this is not supposed to include Saturday, Sunday. If I done it, like if it was on Monday, if we started this Monday, it should have been completed and turned in Thursday. But we started this on Thursday. We'll see how it goes, but I'd like it on Wednesday, so we can present on Thursday. Oh, I was thinking of a fun idea too. I print it out along with all your code, and I can get that Pokemon. Also, it depends on how much code you have, because well, just get it done by Tuesday.
All this like extra stuff you're wanting me to do, I'm gonna need all the time I have.
I don't know. I mean, it should have been due, according to the submission deals, it should have been due Tuesday, and I'm giving you an extra day after. And I'm not including. So I signed it Thursday, 17th, and it's supposed to take 4 days. So Thursday, Friday, Monday, and technically it should be due Tuesday. And then I gave y'all an extra. Then I gave you an extra day, Wednesday. I also planned it over the weekend. Surely you're not working 24 hours over the weekend.
From the morning to 2 and morning to 2. And I'm gonna get on my computer while waiting for you. You know, it's gonna come like exit everything.
You don't know. Currently it's planned for Wednesday.
I'm there, I'm done. I just bought DLCs for my game too. I bought it last week and I still haven't got this yet. Dude, I just tell my online friends what I'm doing. They're like, God, listen to me, get tired. I'm like, listen. It's fine. Excuse me, students and teachers, at this time, all 7th graders, make your way down to the gym floor. You're for pictures.
I know. There's the code word. I don't think y'all pick up too well.
I got close to it.
I don't think we'll be able to hear y'all.
It's like very big.
Yeah.
I have to go make fun of myself for it. I'm like, oh yeah, I made a
Alright. Well, that's it for the day.